And for the 17th time ever, we are live. Merry Christmas Eve, everybody, and welcome to this special, our second special free preview episode of Viewing Network Live here on the main YouTube channel. If you want to see more of these videos, I'd like to recommend you hit the like and subscribe button over on this channel, but also on the main Viewing Network Live channel. That's where you see all of our episodes. That's where I do all my trailer reactions. That's where shows like this are usually at. But for this week, and of course for next week, for New Year's Eve, these are going to be special free preview episodes, kind of like what we did back on Thanksgiving weekend. These are going to be a preview of, it's going to be a preview of what we usually do here on this show. If you've never listened to our show before on the other channel, this is going to be kind of a rundown of pretty much everything that we do on there. We talk about things like the weekend box office. We talk about some of the big news stories of the week, which there was a surprisingly amount of big stories worth talking about. But on top of that, we have some stories I like to bring up, things I found over the course of the internet, some lists in particular, some other things in particular that I thought would be interesting to talk about, and we got some things like that. At the end of the show, we do some recommendations. Now, I should put out the disclaimer, as always, that this is a long, free-form stream of consciousness conversation recording session where I sit back with you, we sit down, we talk about things that happened the previous week before. There's going to be some foul language here, and the conversations we have here are mostly unedited, so there will be some foul language, like I said. But if you're offended by that, you might want to step away. But if you're up to the challenge, gather the family together around the Christmas tree, and as always, and as we usually do here at the beginning of the show, we usually look at the weekend box office, the top 5 weekend box office, which of course is on a Christmas weekend, Christmas Eve today, of course. And the numbers here aren't going to be too extravagant in general. They will usually probably be much bigger, especially when we get to tomorrow, because Christmas Day is usually the biggest day of the entire weekend. But we're just going to cover Friday the 22nd, Saturday the 23rd, and of course today, Christmas Eve. So a lot of movies came out this weekend. Actually, one of them actually fell out of the top 5 just barely, but we can run through these pretty quickly. For the most part, we can run through them pretty quickly, because most of them I have not seen, except for 2 of the ones that are new this week, which we'll get to in just a second here. But let's start with number 5 on this list. It's a new movie that, honestly, I can tell you that I've never even heard of. It's a movie, I think it is one of those movies from India, and it is called Solar, or it's called over there Solar Part 1 Ceasefire. This is a story about a gang leader who tries to keep a promise made to his dying friends and takes on other criminal gangs. I've never heard of this movie before until now, so I can't really tell you anything about it, except for a movie I never heard of. It made a good amount of money, close to $5.5 million in 802 theaters, $6,800 screen average. Yeah, for a movie that I never heard of, it made its money through word of mouth, and again, that's pretty much all I know about it, because I've never heard of this movie before. But I never usually hear about these movies from other countries, especially India, until weekends like this, or when I go to the movie theater and I see that there's a movie like that called that Solar or something like that up there, and I never hear about it until now. But yeah, that's kind of where it is right now. Sitting at number 5, doing pretty well. I mean, for a movie that didn't have a whole lot of marketing, like some of the other movies we're going to get into here, it's pretty impressive stuff, so good for them. Anyway, on to number 4 on the list here. We have the comedy Anyone But You, which is a movie that stars Glenn Powell from Top Gun Maverick and Sydney Sweeney from Euphoria. Usually these type of movies, these R-rated comedies, don't usually do that well over a Christmas holiday, but this kind of did a little bit above expectations, I think. $6.3 million, $6.2 million, $6,235,000 in about 3,000 theaters. Not a bad opening. The budget on this is $25 million, so it's not the best opening for this, but I mean, it could have been worse. Like, really, it could have been a movie where it really could have just crashed and burned, because of the fact that it is opening up on a weekend where you don't usually open movies like this up, and the trailers for this really did not look that promising, honestly. I know people love watching Sydney Sweeney. I know people have a thing for Glenn Powell. But honestly, this is a film that really does not look like it has a whole lot there in terms of a story or anything that interesting. The trailers for it did not look very interesting. It just basically looked like, let's pretend we're a couple, and then slowly but surely they're going to get together as the movie goes on. Directed by Will Gluck, who's directed a couple of movies I've liked. Fired Up, Easy A, Friends with Benefits. I'm one of the few people that likes the Annie remake and the two Peter Rabbit films. So, I don't know. Maybe there is something there that I'm not seeing. But honestly, I really don't have a full intention on checking this movie out at the moment. But then again, that could change as the weeks go on here. So I'm not going to say it's not going to be something I won't see, but I'm just not really in a mood to go see it right away. But $6.2 million. The budget on this is $25 million. I don't know if if it'll stick around or not, but like I said, it could have been a whole lot worse for this movie, because usually you like to open up the family films, the big epic movies, and we have a family film next on our list here, the number 3 film of the week, which is Illumination's Migration, the new film from, of course, Illumination, the company that gave us Despicable Me and most recently the Super Mario Brothers movie. $12.3 million, which does not sound like a good opening in particular, but it's about where Puss in Boots: The Last Wish was last year for Universal. It made about around that money, and it had long legs at the box office, and it really went on to become a box office sensation last year. So they're hoping that kind of this is going to do the same thing. And really, having seen the movie, I hope it does too, because I really enjoyed this movie a whole lot. Budget on this is $72 million. Worldwide so far, it's up to $39 million, which is not a bad opening for this at all. Which is not bad considering the low budget it has, but like I said, it's a type of movie that's going to have legs. There's not going to be a big family film coming out for a while now, so this is perfect time for this movie to stick around in the top 10 until a new family film comes out, which I don't think is going to be anytime soon. Actually, let me see. I'm kind of curious now. I mean, the next big one, if you really want to look at it, the re-release of Soul, which comes out on January the 12th, but I'm not sure how that's going to do. I'm gonna go see it because I really want to see that, Turning Red, and Luca on the big screen. I guess Mean Girls is seen as somewhat of a family movie. I'm guaranteeing that when Nickelodeon has their Nickmas game tomorrow with the Raiders and Chiefs, that'll probably be something that should be on. There'll be a lot of promotions for that. But I'm trying to see if there's any other movies in the not too distant future that could possibly stake a claim in the family film market, and it does not look like it is. Let me see. No, it does not look like it. The only one I see that is a family film but probably will not do well is The Jungle Bunch Operation Meltdown, which I saw the trailer for that during Migration yesterday, and it looked cheesy right from the get-go. Yeah, like I said, it does not look like there's going to be a big family film coming out for a while now. So this film's Migration's going to have some legs to it, but it definitely deserves to be seen. It's a really good movie. I do recommend checking it out. So there's that, and another movie that will benefit from a lack of family films is the number 1 film from last week, and that is Wonka, which is up to $17.7 million, dropping 54% from last week. $75.2 million here in 2 weeks. Worldwide, it's already up to $254 million. Not surprising. This is going to have some legs to it, even though I was not the biggest fan of this movie, like everybody else was. I mean, it's what's to be expected. So with that said, let's move on to the number 1 movie this week, and that is the end of the DC Extended Universe, and that is Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom, which brought in $28.1 million. If you take in the estimates from Monday, it brings it up to $40 million. Actually, I'll get to those in just a moment here, because I just saw that, and I don't know if I want to. I didn't know if I wanted to include those yet, but $28.1 million. But anyway, $28.1 million for the 3-day weekend. Let me go back to the Marvels and see that this movie. I think the Marvels actually opens a little bit bigger than that. I could be wrong on that, but let me see. Where is it? Yeah, the Marvels opened up to $46 million on its opening weekend, but that thing crashed and burned. I mean, as of now, it's up to $84.4 million after 7 weeks, after opening up to a $46 million start. So, not good for that movie. And this one, I would be surprised if it did the same thing, except it will have an extra couple of weeks because there is a lack of a big blockbuster film coming out for a couple of weeks now. Of course, next week is New Year's Eve. New Year's weekend does very well for a number of these movies. So, it would not surprise me if this stuck around. I don't think it's definitely not going to make the same amount of money that the first Aquaman did. I think this actually opened much smaller than the first Aquaman movie did. Let me see what the numbers were on that one. The numbers on Aquaman after 3 days, yeah, it's much lower than that. $67 million after the first 3 days. So this one, yeah, not looking too good for Aquaman here. And it really kind of, I don't think Warner Brothers really even cares at this point, because, of course, this is where, of course, James Gunn now takes over for the DC movie universe now, and they got a plan in place. So I'm definitely very curious to see where they go from there. But yeah, this is probably not what they expected. But, you know, Warner Brothers, they're going to have they got a good holiday coming up. They have Wonka right now and Aquaman, and then tomorrow The Color Purple opens up, which is expected to do pretty well. So they're going to be fine. That's why I read on Deadly Hollywood, they pretty much intended for this to be a kind of an assortment for theaters to go to the theaters and be like, here's 3 of our movies. We don't know which one's going to be the biggest success of them all, so pick your poison, and we'll be good to go. So, in terms of another new release that's just out of the top 5, Zac Efron's The Iron Claw, the new A24 movie, $5.1 million, and I thought this opened in limited release, but I guess they went wide with it. So, not bad. I saw the poster for it yesterday when I was at the theater, and I don't know, maybe I might check it out, but I'm not making it my top priority right now. But let's go to the Christmas weekend estimates right now so we can have an idea of where things are, because, of course, The Color Purple isn't on there yet because it doesn't open until tomorrow. Ferrari isn't on there, too, and it looks like... Let me see. Okay, I've got the daily numbers here because they don't have a list here on Box Office Mojo for the weekend estimates, but... So they have projected for Christmas Day, Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom adds another $11.9 million to make it $40 million after 4 days. Wonka, $8.3 million, moves up to $83.5. Migration moves up to $4.7, which will bring its 4-day total up to $17.1 million. Anyone But You, $2.6 million, bringing it up to $8.8 million. And then the Iron Claw actually would move up ahead of Solar to $2.4 million, bringing its 4-day total to $7.5 million. Now, again, this does not include the new releases coming out on Christmas Day, The Color Purple, and Ferrari. But again, this is just estimates for what they expect for tomorrow, based on, I'm guessing, pre-ticket sales. But then again, you never know where that business coming in right from the theater is going to do. So. But other than that, though, a lot of these movies will be back probably in the same spot they were last week, with a couple of exceptions. So we'll see where that goes from there. But anyway, that is the weekend box office results. So let's go ahead and move on to story time. So story time, if you're new to this, is pretty much the segment where we take a look at some of the big news stories from the past weekend. I thought maybe for Christmas week it would not be a busy week in all, but on Monday, they completely shut that down, because what a story to start the week off with. We finally got an end result to the Jonathan Majors courtroom case, and basically, yeah, Jonathan Majors is pretty much done at this point, because on Monday, Jonathan Majors was found guilty of reckless assault and harassment. And basically, I've got the thing right here with the story. This is from Deadline Hollywood, so let's go ahead and take a read to this. Jonathan Majors has been found guilty of reckless assault and harassment in his domestic violence trial. A New York City jury of 3 men and 3 women just delivered the verdict on the Loki actor after less than 3 days of deliberation. Once touted as an Oscar contender for his role in Searchlight's now-shelved magazine Dreams, Majors could be looking at up to a year behind bars. Sentencing has been set for February 6. The actor has faced a total of 4 misdemeanor charges. Majors was not found guilty of intentional assault in the 3rd degree and of aggravated harassment in 2nd degree against then-girlfriend Grace Jabari in the incident in late March this year. As the verdict was met on Monday, Majors stood facing the jurors and remained completely still, with his hands clasped, his face expressionless. "I want absolutely no reactions in the courtroom, no outbursts," Gaffey said before the verdict was read. Majors' family members and supporters in the first 2 rows also listened in silence as the jury foreperson pronounced Majors guilty of 2 counts and not guilty of 2 others. As Gaffey thanked the jurors, Majors sat between his lawyers and faced straight ahead. The Bible, notepad, and ceramic cup he had brought to the court daily rested on the table in front of him. After delivering the verdict, Judge Michael Gaffey reminded Majors that he remains under a protective order to avoid all contact with Jabari. And this comes after he was arrested and promptly released on March 25th after the alleged assault of Jabari Majors always has insisted of his own innocence. Months ago, he entered a not guilty plea to the charges. Let me see if there's anything new to add to this. No, I don't. It goes deeper into what happened in the courtroom here. There was something here I wanted to read about, but I don't know if I could find it. But basically, after 8 days of testimony in Judd Gaffey's Manhattan courtroom, the jury was left to weigh starkly different accounts of what happened between Majors and Jabari during a car ride home that instead ended at a downtown sidewalk in the middle of the night. They also heard very different versions of what went on in Major's Chelsea apartment with an apparently injured Jabari on the night of March 24th and early morning on March 25th. Majors' call to 911 also led him to be arrested and booked by police. Following closing arguments by the defense and Manhattan's District Attorney Office, the jury went behind closed doors around 3:30 on December 14th. Later that day, the jury requested to have the charges read aloud to them again, as well as allow video and audio from the late March incident between Majors and Jabari played for them. Soon after beginning deliberations on December 18th, the jury sent 2 notes to the court asking to re-examine some of the case evidence. Specifically, the panel wanted to again see videos of the couple fighting outside their chauffeured car on March 24th, have some of the charges reread to them, and hear a portion of testimony with friends of Jabari's of what went down in the nightclub after the incident with Majors. Testifying for several days since the much-delayed trial officially started December 4th, Jabari told the court that Majors struck her in the head and violently twisted her hand and arm during a struggle with his phone on March 24th. Let's see. Despite speculation right up until the last day of the trial that Majors would testify on his own behalf, the actor did not. So I think at that point he kind of realized, yeah, this was over. Like, there's no way that he could defend himself from this, and unfortunately, that basically ends a promising career for this actor, because not too long after he was found guilty, he was fired from Disney as playing Kang the Conqueror. Jonathan Majors is out of the Marvel Studios' Kingdom. The news comes today in the wake of the Emmy-nominated actor being found guilty of reckless assault and harassment. A studio rep confirmed the news about their decision to not move forward with Majors in the MCU. Majors played mega-villain He Who Remains, a.k.a. Kang the Conqueror, in the Marvel Cinematic Universe's Phases 4 through 6. He debuted as the character in Loki in Season 1 in 2021, that continued on in Season 2, as well as this February's Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. Majors also had back-to-back hits at Amazon and MGM's Creed 3 in March. Having stuck with the actor over the months since his arrest on March 25th, WME continues to represent Majors. His long-time agent testified briefly in Majors' defense last week as the last witness in the nearly 2-week trial. So, He Who Remains was plotted to be a big baddie during the MCU's Phase 5 and 6, with the character getting his own movie, Avengers: The Kang Dynasty, which has now been changed over to Avengers 5. They just announced that shortly after this came out. That movie recently saw its director, Shang-Chi's Destin Daniel Cretton, exit due to his busy dance card on other Marvel projects. It's to be determined in regards to whether Marvel keeps the Kang character intact while recasting the part with another actor. So, not really a surprise what would happen as soon as that happened, but as soon as that verdict came out. But it's a shame, man, because I talked about it briefly in there, but I mean, I like this guy as an actor. I think he was a really great actor. I saw him on Lovecraft Country when that was on TV, and I thought this guy was going to be one of those great rising actors. But unfortunately, it just didn't. It was not meant to be, and sure enough, this happens, and basically, it was just over and done with, man. Like, I mean, he probably could come back from this after he pays his debt to society, but it's going to be tough for him to do that. I mean, it's going to be really, really tough to really get back to where he was before this incident happened. I mean, he was on his way to becoming one of the next great stars. I mean, not only with the Marvel Cinematic Universe, but his performance in Creed 3 is so good. He's really incredible in that movie, and that's one of my favorite films of the year so far. But, you know, this happens now, and it creates like a huge conundrum, not just for his future film career, but for the MCU, because they were setting him up to be the next big baddie. He was supposed to be the next big Thanos, but, I mean, it's a shame. It really is a shame, because there was just so much there, talent-wise, but, like, this is going to hurt him for a while now. It's going to be really, really tough for him to come back from this. Not saying that he can't, but I mean, I was really let down. I was really hoping that this was going to be something that was like, somebody's just trying to do this because his name is just getting out there. But yeah, not so much. So yeah, I'm let down by this, like everybody else is. I really, really hope that it wouldn't end up like being that way, but unfortunately, that's just how it has to go. And unfortunately, that really ends up being a major caveat in the whole thing. Like, can he come back from this? Probably, but at the same time, it's not looking too good right now. And it's probably best that he just accepts the consequences of his mistakes and just go back, do the time, do the crime, and then try to build your way back up there. But really, there's not much more you could say about this one except a lot of disappointment all the way through. So that was one of the big stories, and I thought that would be the biggest story of the week, but then somebody decided to drop a bombshell about what's going on over at Warner Brothers. And no, the bombshell isn't about how David Zaslav is finally out of a job, because that would be the ultimate Christmas miracle right there, but no. So we've been talking about potentially some merger talks with maybe Warner Brothers and Universal, which probably makes a lot of sense. They basically kind of already are merging on, especially home entertainment releases. Studio Distribution Services is basically the same company. Both companies, Warner Brothers and Universal, have their movies released through those companies. But no, it gets much more interesting than that. And this came out on, I believe, Wednesday, I think. Yeah, Wednesday, because it was on the 20th. I've got the story right here. This is from Variety, and there's a lot to talk about here, so let's go ahead and just say what it is. Warner Brothers Discovery and Paramount Global have been held talks for a potential merger of the two media companies, Variety has confirmed. So Warner Brothers and Paramount potentially are on the cusp of merging, which there's a lot to discuss there. So you may be thinking that maybe Paramount wants to buy Warner Brothers. Maybe that's the thing. No, actually, it's completely the opposite, as the story continues. Warner Brothers Discovery CEO David Zaslav met with Paramount Global CEO Bob Bakish in a lunch meeting Tuesday in New York, where they discussed a possible merger, sources say. Zaslav also has talked with Sherry Redstone, whose National Amusements Inc. owns a controlling stake of Paramount Global, about a potential combination of the companies. Reps for Paramount Global and WBD declined to comment. Axis first reported the talks. Axios is the company that actually I was trying to look for, where they had a list of everything that they were talking about with the storyline here. And I'll get to them in just a second here, but terms of a possible merger of the companies could not be learned. Both companies have enlisted bankers, but the status of the talks are described as very preliminary. As of the end of quarter 3, Paramount Global reported long-term debt of $15.6 billion, considerably less than WBD, whose debt load stood at $43.5 billion. But in terms of market value, Warner Brothers Discovery is the bigger fish, with a market capitalization of $28.4 billion as of close of trading December 20th, compared to the $10.3 billion for Paramount Global. Warner Brothers Discovery and Paramount would be looking to pool their assets, which span TV, film, sports, and streaming, to gain greater scale and operational efficiencies. Specifically, WBD and Paramount would have an interest in combining their Max and Paramount Plus premium streaming services to better compete with the likes of Netflix and Disney's Disney Plus and Hulu. On the film side, Warner Brothers Discovery would acquire top-tier priorities from Paramount Pictures, including such film franchises as Terminator, Transformers, Mission Impossible, Top Gun, A Quiet Place, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, The Godfather, Paranormal Activity, Scream. We'll have some stuff on Scream in just a little bit here, and the Star Trek film franchises. The Warner Brothers Picture stable includes the DC films, Harry Potter, and the Lord of the Rings movie franchises. A merged WBD Paramount Global would also be expected to combine their TV operations. Warner Brothers Discovery's cable lineup includes CNN, HBO, TBS, TNT, Discovery Channel, Cartoon Network, Food Network, HDTV, TLC, and others. Paramount's networks include CBS, Comedy Central, MTV, Nickelodeon, and BET. Also this week, media mogul Byron Allen reached out to Paramount's top brass to extend a $3.5 billion offer to buy BET Media Group, which includes BET, VH1, and the BET Plus streaming service. He also wants to try to buy ABC from Disney, but no word on that, if that's ever going to happen. So, let me see where I want to go to next here. So let me go to the Axios story, because this is where the story first came out on. And it kind of runs down everything about what they're talking about here with this deal. It starts off by saying, why it matters. The combination would create a news and entertainment behemoth that would likely trigger further industry consolidation. So that's also, it's basically saying that he already spoke to Sherry Redstone, and the market value for WBD and Paramount. Let's see. Is there anything new here then? Okay, here we go. Between the lines, the deal could drive substantial synergies. WBD could use its international distribution footprint to boost Paramount's franchises, while Paramount's children programming asset could be essential to WBD's long-term standing ambitions. Of course, Paramount owns Nickelodeon, Warner Brothers owns Cartoon Network. Basically, having the two biggest competitors coming together as one would be really, really interesting. And not only that, but CBS News could be combined with CNN to create a global news powerhouse. CBS's crime dramas such as NCIS and Criminal Minds could be combined with Investigation Discovery and True TV. CBS Sports' footprint could be combined with Warner Brothers. For example, CBS and WBD's Turner Sports currently share TV rights for March Madness. It says, P. Smart, Paramount is under enormous pressure to find a strategic partner or buyer as it's staring down a mountain of debt. The firm's stock jumped 12% earlier this month following a report from Puck that Skydance Media and Redbird Capital Partners were eyeing a potential deal to buy a majority stake in NAI, National Amusements Incorporated. They reached a deal with creditors to restructure some of the debt in September and previously slimmed down by selling Simon & Schuster. It's also in talks to unload BET. One source familiar with the discussion said the strategy being considered mirrors Zaslav's blueprint for prior mergers, which, if you've seen what David Zaslav has done since getting the job at Warner Brothers, it should be a wonderful, I'm just kidding though, but the bottom line, talks between WBD and Paramount are still early and may not ultimately result in a deal, but given the acceleration of cord cutting and the growing encroachment of big tech on media, neither company can remain on the sidelines for long. And going back to the Variety story here, they had another article talking about what's going on here. Basically, let's see, is there anything new here that I can add here that I haven't already talked about? That does not look like it, but we should also keep in mind here that you know how Coyote versus Acme, Warner Brothers is letting other studios look at it to potentially pick that up. Well, a couple weeks ago we talked about how Paramount was seen as one of the major companies that was really looking to pick up Coyote versus Acme, which would be hilarious to think about it, that the Looney Tunes would be having a film released under a different company because Warner Brothers didn't want to pay the money for it. Part of me thinks that Warner Brothers is trying to buy Paramount as a way to lowball them into not taking the movie. Like, I don't know. It just feels like that Paramount really wanted to pick this movie up, but I don't know. It just feels like something shady is going on here. With David Zaslav, it wouldn't be that surprising whatsoever. And why would his company, which is already $45 billion in debt, because of the stuff that he did, why would he want to take another company like Paramount and add more debt to that? Like, it just really wouldn't make a whole lot of sense to merge them. And while the idea of a Nickelodeon Cartoon Network together in one company is very enticing and very intriguing, I don't know. It just feels like a really, really bad idea. And the more I think about it, I probably wouldn't want that to happen. I mean, if I'm being honest, Universal, like a pairing of Warner Brothers and Universal sounds much more interesting and much more promising than Warner Brothers picking up Paramount in general, because basically they sound like a much better. Warner Brothers and Universal at least has some relationship between each other. I mean, Universal theme parks have a lot of the same stuff that Warner Brothers owns. Of course, Harry Potter. I mean, there's a lot of stuff owned by Warner Brothers that is in Universal. Scooby-Doo. Like, really, it just feels like they would make more sense at a pairing with Warner Brothers and Paramount. I just feel like this is something that could go very, very wrong if it's basically Warner Brothers picking up Paramount and not the other way around. Because Paramount, I think, would be a better place suitable for Warner Brothers. And like I said, I feel like it's a lowball move for them to not take Coyote versus Acme and have it go somewhere else, or just to have it not be released at all. Like, just part of his crazy plan that he like. It's just, I mean, it's not something that I feel like really would benefit the two companies if that was the case. But regardless, that was a very, very big story that came out during the week, and might as well talk about it because that is something that could maybe happen, but part of me wishes it doesn't. I think, like I said, I still think the idea of pairing Warner Brothers and Universal sounds much more interesting and more pleasing, and would make more sense than Warner Brothers and Paramount coming together. But I'm not the one making those decisions. So there was that story, and then yesterday we got a story that we were following up from last month. So actually, this happened during our last free preview show, I believe. We talked about the controversy going on behind the scenes of Scream 7 with both its leading stars, Melissa Barrera and Jenna Ortega, is leaving the film. Melissa got fired and Jenna left after she did. And now the director that was brought in to direct Scream 7 is no longer directing it. This comes from The Hollywood Reporter. Christopher Landon is no longer answering the Scream 7 call. The director has dropped out of the feature, capping a tumultuous few months for the embattled production that has included the exit of its two leads. I guess now is as good of a time to announce that I have formally exited Scream 7 weeks ago. This will disappoint some and delight others. It was a dream job that turned into a nightmare, and my heart did break for everyone involved. Everyone. But it's time to move on. Landon wrote on X Saturday. I have nothing more to add to the conversation other than I hope Wes's legacy thrives and lifts above the din of a divided world. What he and Kevin created is something amazing, and I was honored to have even the briefest moment basking in the glow. And of course, they talk about how on November 21st, news broke that Spyglass had fired Melissa Barrera following the upcoming Scream 7 over social media posts that it characterized as anti-Semitic, while a day later, word came that Jenna Ortega would not be returning. Sources noted Barrera's firing actually came in October in the early weeks of the Israel-Hamas war, during which the actor had become increasingly vocal. Ortega's exit, which was her and her representations team's decision, came before the summer SAG-AFTRA strike, but was not made public until last month. So basically, when they announced it, this was already pretty much set in stone. I think even Landon himself said that this happened weeks ago. So, bottom line is that basically, the whole Scream 7 basically isn't happening for a while at least, and basically it just means that. It was probably for the best that this movie probably did not get made so quickly, because the last two movies came so fast, so quickly, and I know this is the way of horror movies. You make a successful one year, and then it's got to be like that for several years. They have to make one every single year. That's what happened with Friday the 13th. That's what happened with The Nightmare on Elm Street. That's what happened with Paranormal Activity, Saw. They just announced a new Saw movie coming out after Saw X was a critical success. But at some point you're going to find a way to not really keep going with this. You're going to find a way to lose the freshness of this new series of films. And basically what they're saying now is that Scream 7's future relies on the writer of the film, James Vanderbilt, who co-wrote the rebooted movies. I'm reading this again from the Hollywood Reporter. Sources say that the scribe, who was already contending with Ortega's loss, had been focusing the story on Barrera's character. When she was let go, he at least had a creative partner in Landon to shoulder the story. Now, the franchise is back at the zero marker and will need to rebuild whole cloth, which, you know what? It's probably for the best that happens. I mean, this is something that really has to be, at this point, you really have to find a really good way to continue the story on without many of the people that were in the previous two movies. Basically, Spyglass pretty much screwed the whole thing up. They were the ones that started it by the fact that they thought these comments that Melissa Barrera made were anti-Semitic, which I don't really think they were. Again, I don't really know I don't really have a say in what's going on with the Israel-Hamas war right now. It's not something that I really have been keeping up with, so I can't really talk about it per se without really doing more research on it, on what's going on here. So I don't really ever talk about that. I don't really move into that, talk about that in general. But I think that just the whole thing, Spyglass, I think the company really screwed up on the fact that they had to basically just. They basically dug their own grave once this happened. It's just kind of that's just it feels like this is all on them. This is all their decision, and now they're reaping the consequences of their actions here. And basically, it means that Scream 7 basically is now going to have to be forced to go through rewrites. They're going to have to find a new way to bring this back in here with a new take on it that people would eventually come back to see, but. I feel like it's going to be really tough to do at this point. I mean, it's going to take a while for this movie to come out. Probably won't come out next year like they were planning on doing it. Maybe not even the year after that. But, I don't know. I feel like they're going to wait maybe for the 30th anniversary in 2026 maybe to get that one out there. But I don't really see another Scream movie coming for at least a while now. So, So yeah, that's just my thoughts on that one. Nothing too much more to add to that. Just that the director is now officially gone from Screen 7, and it's back to the drawing board with that one. So those are some of the big stories from the past week in terms of news. Let's talk about some stories that I wanted to bring up for this last segment here. So I hope all of you out there are having a Merry Christmas Eve, and I hope your family is well. Even if your family isn't well out there, I wish you all the best out there. And Christmas is one of my favorite holidays. It may be my favorite holiday in general because I like to go back and look at some of the great memories I remember from many Christmases long ago. Probably one of my favorite Christmases, honestly, was the Christmas where we went down to Heinz Field, which is Acrisure Stadium, it was 2016, and it was the game against the Steelers and the Ravens. We got tickets for that game, and I went with my cousin, my aunt, and we went down there to watch the Steelers and Ravens game down at Heinz Field, which was really fun to watch. It was one of those games where it's just like, it went back and forth so many times. You thought at one point the Ravens were going to win the game and the Steelers would have to, because the Steelers basically were playing that game to win the division. It was basically, this is back when the Killer Bees were still there. Ben Roethlisberger, Le'Veon Bell, Antonio Brown, Chris Boswell, of course. But then, the Ravens take the lead late in the game. You think it's all over and done, but then Ben Roethlisberger just hurls that ball down the field, and then Antonio Brown with that immaculate extension, and the place roared and erupted with like cheers and all that. I remember being down there and seeing that moment live. It was just like it was just a great moment. I have that video on the main channel here, so I'll go ahead and put a link to it up in the corner if you want to go check that out. But that's one of those moments that I remember a lot, because as soon as that game was over, they had all the stuff ready out there, the caps and the shirts and all that. And I saw my program from that day. That's one of my favorite Christmas memories, from a recent memory. This year in particular was a very weird situation. Like, it was a very weird scenario for, like, getting me excited for Christmas, and it was just kind of like, I don't know. I'm still excited for Christmas. I'm still excited for tomorrow, but I don't know what it was, but it just felt like when I went out, because I usually go out to Monroe Mall. That's where I do my movie stop episodes, but it just seems like when I went down there the last couple of weeks, it really didn't feel like they didn't have the big assortment of Christmas decorations that they usually would have. I mean, like, they've kind of lowered down the level of the decorations that they have. It's there a couple years ago. These are like newer decorations, but they look much smaller compared to like the big extravagant ones they had back in the day. And it was like that even in the department stores too, like in Macy's. I know in particular, like the decorations in there really were not as extravagant as they would be in the past and all that. And maybe I'm just kind of I don't know. Maybe it's because I'm spoiled from like watching like all these old classic Christmas movies on TV and Christmas specials, and you see all the places decked out in like Christmas decorations and all that. Like, you go into like these department stores in these movies, and like everything is like design and all that. I mean, it probably still is in like major department stores outside of this one mall. Like, I'm sure if you go to the Macy's downtown in New York City, they still decorate the place around there. I mean, you see a little bit of it during the Thanksgiving Day parades and all that, but I don't know. Just this weird, it felt kind of off. Like, it didn't feel like there was that high assortment of excitement for this busy time of the year. But then again, we live in a time now where it's basically most people buy their stuff online. When I go up to the mall during these last couple of weeks, I realize that there isn't as many people as there would usually be. I mean, there's still people there. You still see people buying stuff in the stores, and like, at least not at Monroe Mall, but like I've heard from other malls around town, like that my family went to. It's packed at some of those places too. Like, the one place I went to in the mall this past weekend I walked past it, and basically it was the Pandora store, Pandora Jewelry, and that's only because that was next to the movie theater, that's next to the train station, that's where the Santa Claus is at. It's all in this little big congested area. But the Pandora store was like, every time I walked by it, I walked across there about maybe 3-4 times. Like, every time I walked down there was always a line of people standing out in front of the store. You had to wait to get inside that store. And it's always interesting to see that type of place, because the only other place that ever has that is Bath and Body Works. Like, Like, you always see people waiting outside of Bath and Body Works. Mostly it's just the husbands and the boyfriends and the guys that are just sitting out there because they don't want to go inside there and look at some of the stuff in Bath and Body Works. Hell, I don't even like going inside of Bath and Body Works sometimes, but I never usually do. But I just always find it amusing. Every time I walk by there, I see like a group of people just sitting out there with nothing to do, just sitting up on the thing that's on the railing and just like sitting there waiting for their wives or girlfriends to come out of there. Like, I mean, Christmas really just, like, I know Christmas really is not what it used to be. Really grew up, I was lucky enough to grow up when Christmas was like a big deal. It still is a big deal, but like a big deal in terms of like people putting all the effort to creating the decorations and all that. And on television, like like the broadcast networks in particular, like CBS, ABC, NBC, Fox, CW. I've talked about it a couple of times here on this particular show and other episodes, but, you know, every once in a while, there was always that time when, like, all the major networks had their own assortment of Christmas specials that had to be, like, must-see events. Like, of course, CBS has Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer and Frosty the Snowman now, but it wasn't just them back in the day. You know, you had Charlie Brown Christmas, you had a Garfield Christmas. There was a time when the Grinch was on there for a long period of time. You know, 'Twas the Night Before Christmas. The Pee Wee Herman Christmas special. You know, Mickey's Christmas Carol was on there in the 90s. You know, NBC had Mickey's Christmas Carol when that came out. The Chipmunk Christmas special, the Smurfs Christmas special. They tried to create like an assortment of different holiday specials to try to create the next generation in the 90s, like stuff like the Inspector Gadget Christmas special and Noel, the Town Santa Forgot. None of them really became the next great holiday classic, even though they had attempts to try to create the next big holiday thing. I think, you know, with National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation on NBC, after a couple years on ABC, Home Alone was on there for the longest period of time. It was like the big holiday tradition that kicked off the holiday movie season, because it was always on Thanksgiving night. And now it's on ABC. It's actually on ABC as of the time of recording this. You know, and CBS was the network to be for holiday specials for a long period of time. And then slowly but surely they started to go away. Like the Garfield specials went off the air. You know, Mickey's Christmas Carol went off the air. The Charlie Brown specials later moved on to ABC. And then there was that time in the 2000s, like 2000s, 2010s, when ABC was the must-see place for all the classic holiday specials. And then even they kind of went away. Now most of it is just like Disney specials, like Mickey Mouse has a couple of specials on there. Prep and Landing is always something you see on there every year. Toy Story. What's the other one they did? Santa Claus is Coming to Town. Like that's really the only real classic that's on ABC nowadays. Unfortunately, you can only watch a Charlie Brown Christmas on Apple TV Plus, or if you really go look online, you can pretty much find it. Like, there's one website in particular that I went to that I've been going to the last couple of years. I think it's called SchoolTube. And they take, like, a 1989 airing of a Charlie Brown Christmas. I know that because Prancer came out that same year and had a commercial for that during the airing of that. And that's the way I've been watching a Charlie Brown Christmas there for a number of years, because I just don't want to... I'm not really ready to subscribe to Apple TV Plus just yet. I mean, maybe one day I will, but not at this very moment. You know, it's weird. Like this year, I was able to watch most of the usual stuff that I usually watch every year, like all the holiday movies I love to watch, all the holiday specials. I had to go searching for most of them, but I was able to find most of what I wanted to check out every year. I make a goal to watch these particular things every single year, and you know, it just, like, I know that we're in a technologically advanced time period now where everyone's trying to put out these streaming services and all that. Actually, I really did this. It's not even a long time ago, but in just this last week alone, I finally decided to try out Tubi, because they had, you know, classic Warner Brothers, Hanna-Barbera holiday specials I've been wanting to watch again for a while now, but they're no longer on HBO Max. Like, I watched the Flintstone Christmas specials again. The Flintstone Christmas specials are on there. The Looney Tunes Christmas specials are on there. Tom and Jerry's Christmas specials on there. I mean, they have a good assortment of classic movies and specials on there that I like to check out again. Yeah, like stuff I used to watch on Cartoon Network and like TBS, TNT, USA Network. They're all on this Tubi website, and it's free too. It's a free streaming service, so that kind of made me say, you know what, why not go for it? I might as well take the chance on it, and I've been really enjoying it so far. Like, you don't get too many ads on there. Every once in a while, they'll stop it for a little bit for an ad or two, but it's not a bad thing to have. I would say if you're kind of forced into checking out streaming services, I would recommend Tubi easily. if you can't really afford it, it's a free service, and I'd say definitely check it out if you can. Yeah, like, just, I mean, I still like Christmas a lot. I know what Christmas really is all about. It's about being with your family. It's about celebrating the birth of the Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. It's about being nice to people. I mean, one of my favorite stories of all time is A Christmas Carol. I mean, it's a story that I love. Like, I love all the different, not a Christmas story, A Christmas Carol. Good Lord. We'll get to A Christmas Story in just a little bit, but A Christmas Carol. Like, I love seeing all the different versions of A Christmas Carol. I have a soft spot for all of them. Like, I really love these stories. It's one of my favorite stories of all time, and I like seeing the different interpretations of them. I mean, like I said last week, the first one I really got invested in was the Mickey's Christmas Carol one, and then slowly but surely I started to watch all the other ones. Like, eventually I got to Scrooge, eventually I got to the Muppet Christmas Carol, the Looney Tunes Christmas Carol one they did. Two of them, actually. The Smurfs one, the George C. Scott one, just classic versions of A Christmas Carol. The Jim Carrey one came out not too long ago. I mean, it's one of my favorite stories of all time, just in general. Like, I really love that story a lot. And honestly, I could do a top 10 list of the best Christmas Carol versions ever. I mean, that's how many different great versions there are out there, and there's much more than 10 of them. But maybe I'll save that for next Christmas. But in the meantime, since we're kind of on Christmas Eve, I might as well talk about some of my favorite Christmas movies of all time. I kind of teased this in last week's episode, so I might as well go ahead and talk about it now. There's just quickly my top 10 favorite Christmas movies of all time. So I'm not going to do anything too fancy for this. This is just kind of my little rundown of the 10 movies that I usually like to watch every Christmas. I tried my best to basically make it a priority to at least watch these 10 movies at least once a year. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, but let's just run through these pretty quickly. Number 10 on my list, this goes from bottom to top, of course. Number 10, Love Actually. This is a film that, you can say that this is the film that helped to launch kind of the ensemble romantic comedies that led us to the terrible Gary Marshall films like Valentine's Day and New Year's Eve. But honestly, unlike those terrible movies, this is actually a smartly written, well-acted, and overall very romantic comedy. I mean, the ensemble cast in this movie works incredibly well together. I mean, you've got names like Emma Thompson, Alan Rickman, Liam Neeson is in here, Colin Firth, Hugh Grant, Rowan Atkinson, Laura Linney. I mean, just phenomenal cast. Bill Nighy. All the chemistries and the stories they have here are perfectly handled very well, not falling into the typical romantic comedy cliches, and when they do, it's written very well, and that's all because of Richard Curtis, who has this knack of creating very nicely made romantic comedies like Bridget Jones's Diary, Notting Hill. I mean, he is very good at handling these type of stories like this, and Love Actually is a smartly written, well-made, well-acted, and very believable romantic comedy that could have been one of the biggest disappointments ever, but thankfully, a guy like Richard Curtis does a great job of keeping all the characters' its chemistry together, perfectly matched. It never falls flat on any levels, and by the end, you're just very satisfied by what you see. It's like what Hugh Grant says in the beginning of the film. Love Actually is all around. Number 9 on my list, Elf. It's one of those movies that sounds like a really, really bad idea. However, once you start watching the film, you get kind of hooked, and it's mostly because of Will Ferrell. I mean, we look at him now as not being as great as he used to be, but he is very solid in the movie, and he's one of the things that helps the film ignite the storyline. He gets it going, and he helps boost the film to another level, and the rest of the cast does a great job of handling that. James Caan, Ed Asner, Bob Newhart, Zooey Deschanel, Mary Steenburgen. Jon Favreau proves how great of a director he can really be with a film like this, and it just really highlights his abilities as a director. I would say this, though. I finally watched it again this year after a couple of years of not watching it in full. Maybe that's for the best. Maybe if I watch it once every couple of years, maybe I really do like it more and more, but I know people that watch it every year, they kind of get a little bit tired of it, especially since it's now become more of a merchandising thing, kind of like what Warner Brothers has done with a lot of their other Christmas movies. But I will say that it definitely I think it's worth it watching it every once in a while, but I don't know if I could watch it every single year like I used to do. I mean, I don't know. I just have so many other movies in particular that I really do want to watch over and over again. Like our number 8 movie, which is Disney's A Christmas Carol. And there's not really much more to say about the plot of the movie because it's basically the same story of A Christmas Carol that we've done so many times before. And I think I said Christmas Story again, too. I mean, it's one of my all-time favorite stories. Like I said, it's set up really well. It has a very important lesson to teach. Don't be a jerk your whole life because nothing good will come of it. And out of all of the adaptations I've seen, I love almost every one of them, but this is right up there with some of my favorite ones. And it's also one of the creepiest ones, too. But then again, A Christmas Story, I did it again. A Christmas Carol is a dark storyline. And really, like, we've seen times when they tried to go too dark and it doesn't work, like the FX one they did with Guy Pearce. That's not one of my favorite ones. That's actually one of my least favorite ones. And it's FX, though. FX really is... I expect more from FX, but there is so much to love about the movie. You know, Robert Zemeckis, one of my all-time favorite directors, does a very good job handling this. It's a good script, too. Jim Carrey's pretty good as the Grinch. God damn it. I'm getting so confused here. Jim Carrey is fantastic as Scrooge and the Three Ghosts. Even if it is as a voiceover, I would love to see Jim Carrey, you know, get the respect of Scrooge that he does with some of these other actors, because he really does put his all into this. And I think the motion caption work is well done. I think it is very well done. I think it hits its creative peak here, because it really, after that, it went downhill from there. And I think it kind of like, this is kind of the last time you could really get away with it in terms of Robert Zemeckis' work, like he did with The Polar Express and then Beowulf. It's a really good movie. I do recommend it. And speaking of Christmas Carol, here's another one of my favorite versions of it, Scrooged, at number 7. You know, Bill Murray basically playing the head of a major TV network. Now, here's a version that's a different take on A Christmas Carol, but done well. It's a really well done version of the storyline. Like, Richard Donner directed it, and it is more of a dark comedy in a way, but it works to so many different advantages. It works with the visual aspect to it. It's mostly using practical effects for the most part. The cast overall is great in it. Karen Allen's also in here. Bobcat Goldthwait, Carol Kane, Robert Mitchum, David Johansen. Now I can't remember who John Glover? Yeah, John Glover, because he was also in Gremlins 2. He's very good in the film. Alfre Wood is also good in here. Like, it's a really well-made film. It's a really good, different twist on A Christmas Carol that we know so much about already, but it is one of those ones that I always love going back to every single year. It's one of my favorite ones to watch. Nightmare Before Christmas is at number 6. It's a game changer for movies in terms of groundbreaking visuals, great voice work, songs that are so memorable. I just went to go see this again in theaters for Halloween. It was great to see. It was great to see on the big screen again. It's just a movie you go back to every single year, and you never get tired of it. Honestly, even if you're watching it on Halloween or Christmas, it's worth it in the end. Now, number 5 on my list is a criminally underrated Christmas film that really has not gotten the proper respect I think it deserves, Arthur Christmas. I mean, this is a really good film made by Aardman. Sony Pictures put it out about 10 years ago. It's a really good film. Like, it works because on so many levels. It's unlike any other family film. It's no fart jokes, no toilet humor, no pop culture references. It could honestly be a timeless Christmas movie, even though it's set in modern times. It just works on that level. And you have, like, a great voice cast overall. James McAvoy's great as Arthur. Bill Nighy is great as Grand Santa, popping off one-liners here and there. Hugh Laurie and Jim Broadbent are great as Stephen Santa. And I really like the movie that is not a typical movie like this. It doesn't have an essential villain. Like, Steve is not really a villain. He just doesn't know any better. He wants the attention. He wants to be the next Santa. But when his father basically says that he's coming back the next year, it really does something to him. And I like that he's not a villain. He's just misunderstood. And I really like that in a way. Like, the story doesn't really do anything too special or too groundbreaking, but it plays it out very well. The timing is nicely done. They do a good job of padding the story out here when they don't really feel like you've been there for a while. And I like that it's not centering on the commercialism of Christmas. It's centering on the family. The way it's done is so well and played out. You know, most families would be like this. This is what most families would be like when they get together. It does a really good job of also showing what the true meaning of Christmas is, and it is about the family. It's about being there for the people you love, and it's about supporting what they've done, and just being a good person in general. It is a really well-made film that I'm ashamed it's not getting the proper respect that it deserves nowadays, but it really does deserve a lot more attention than I think it gets. Number 4 is probably my favorite version of A Christmas Carol, and that's the George C. Scott one. I mean, he's really great as Ebenezer Scrooge. He pulls off that character so well. You wonder if the real Scrooge actually would look like him, because that's how good his performance is. This was a TV movie that aired back in the 1980s on CBS. It used to be like a tradition every year, and it's a really, really good version. It's definitely one of the most definitive version of A Christmas Carol I've seen. It's the one I have to go back and watch every single year. It's worth it to watch it in the end. It's really, really well done stuff. Number 3, Home Alone. Like, what more do I have to say about this movie? I mean, it's a really good Christmas movie. Like, it's a film that you go back to every single time, and it never gets boring. It never really gets overhyped as much as you would think it would, because it is a comedy. It is one of the most successful comedies of all time, and yeah, get past all the slapstick comedy in the final act, and you get a really great Christmas movie where you have Macaulay Culkin doing the best job he can. And you've got a great cast overall here. You know, Daniel Stern, Joe Pesci, they're great as the burglars. Catherine O'Hara is great as his mother. John Candy has a really good cameo in here. And you really do like the guy who plays the snow shoveler guy that everybody thinks is the monster. His story is really well done. It's got everything. The heart, the humor, the spirit of the season. Like, it plays on TV every single day pretty much on Freeform. And like I said, it's on right now on ABC as I'm recording this. And it's just a movie that never gets boring. It never gets to the point where it gets so annoying that you just want to turn it off. Ooh, excuse me. But, I love it, man. It's one of my favorite Christmas movies of all time. Definitely in the top 3. One of my favorite comedies of all time. And I like Home Alone 2 as well. Like, I think it's on the same level as something like a Ghostbusters 2 or a Men in Black 2, where it's just a typical comedy sequel, but a good, fun comedy sequel. But, moving on to number 2 on the list, we have another sequel, National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation, which, again, it just works to the heights of what John Hughes usually does so well. It's nicely handled, the script is great, the cast is top-notch. Chevy Chase, Beverly D'Angelo, Randy Quaid, what more do I gotta say about them? The set pieces are nice all around. It has the feel of Christmas all the way through. What more do I even need to say about it? It's one of the great Christmas classics, and you'd be really doing yourself a huge disservice for not checking it out. And there's a lot of other ones I could put on the list. Like I said, the Jim Carrey Grinch one, I don't hate as much as everybody else does. I like most elements to it. I like the Benedict Cumberbatch version of the Grinch. What's another one? The Santa Claus movies. Mostly okay with those ones. I guess I could throw It's a Wonderful Life in there too. I guess that is a Christmas movie. It's a Wonderful Life, Miracle on 34th Street, both versions. I think both versions are really well done. My favorite Christmas movie of all time really should not come as a surprise to anybody, but it's A Christmas Story. I mean, it's just a great movie. It's a really well-made film directed by Bob Clark, featuring a phenomenal cast led by Peter Billingsley, Melinda Dillon, and Darren McGavin. I can't think of any other movie that has so many memorable moments like A Christmas Story. It's got everything. Great characters, a good story, a lot of great visuals to it. The snow in this movie is beautiful to look at. I mean, it's got a lot of great, hilarious moments that we all look back to. It's just a damn great movie. And when TBS does that 24 hours of A Christmas Story marathon, it's always on. Like, I cannot really watch this movie. It has to be a tradition that I have to at least watch it once during this marathon that they do on Christmas Eve. It's just kind of the tradition I've had set in stone for me. But I like this one a lot. I do really like the Christmas Story Christmas sequel that came out not too long ago, the one from last year. That's the definitive Christmas Story sequel. Not A Christmas Story 2, or not the live version of the Christmas Story. But 8-Bit Christmas was really good too. That's another one I should probably put on the list. But yeah, I did really like the sequel they did last year, where they brought Peter Billingsley back. I thought that was very well done. But nothing tops A Christmas Story for me. It's my number 1 Christmas movie of all time. I can't recommend this one enough. If you haven't seen it, you're doing yourself a huge disservice by not doing so. This is usually the part of the show where I usually, I take this time to use this for recommendations for new releases coming out this week, but since there is nothing too extravagant coming out this week in terms of physical media, and most of the stuff on streaming is pretty much already out now, and I don't think there will be anything too significant coming out for the week between Christmas and New Year's, I want to take this opportunity to talk about, to basically wrap this up and basically say, thank you guys so much for watching this. Thank you guys for the year in general. I'll save my my recap of the year itself for next week. When once again, this will be another free preview episode here on this channel, and I'll also have some best of the year lists, best and worst movie lists to put out here, including, I think it's going to be my TV shows for next week, and then I'll save the movies for the week after that is when I put this back on the other Reviewing Network Live YouTube channel. But But I want to thank you guys so much out there for watching this. I want to thank you guys for listening in. I hope you're all having a good holiday. I hope you will have a good holiday tomorrow. And if you're celebrating Christmas, Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, whatever, I wish you all the best and a happy holiday. And I want to wrap this up by basically, I wrote this thing a couple years ago on Facebook, and it's something that I always go back to. It's one of my favorite things to write because it just shows my love of the holiday season for everything that basically has made me really appreciate the holiday season more. So, let me just go ahead and read this to you to wrap this up. So, somewhere right now, Rudolph is saving Christmas with his nose so bright. The Grinch is stealing Christmas only to realize that there is more to Christmas than things that come from the store, and maybe a little bit more. Scrooge and Frank Cross are being visited by three ghosts, trying to save their lives, pretty much. Kevin McAllister has successfully trapped Harvey and Marv twice. Good Lord, Harvey and Marv would be a much different movie when you think about it, but no. Kevin McAllister has successfully trapped Harry and Marv twice, once in Chicago and once in New York. The Griswolds are having their family Christmas, which is not going pretty well right now, I would assume. Ralphie's dreaming of the BB gun that he wants in the morning. Scott Calvin has taken over for Santa Claus, which is a job that he would hold to this very day. Fred Flintstone and Barney Rubble have saved Christmas by taking over for Santa after he sprains his ankle. A family is being stalked by the evil spirit of Krampus. George Bailey doesn't exist. Charlie Brown is learning the true meaning of Christmas. Brian and Stewie are trying to get people to believe in Santa again. Homer and Bart just brought home Santa's little helper from the dog tracks. Abed and the gang at Greendale are having the most important Christmas ever. Garfield has just found a series of love letters from John's grandmother to her husband. The son of Santa Claus, Arthur, is trying to get a bite to a child that has been missed. A group of kids are on their way to the North Pole on the Polar Express. And Buddy the Elf has brought the Christmas spirit back to New York as he helps Santa get out of Central Park. Somewhere this is all happening right now. And, I feel I'm honored to be doing this now, and it really is just like those are my memories of Christmas, like my movie memories, my TV memories, the stuff I grew up loving. I put that together a couple years ago. It's something I always go back to every year, and I wanted to share that with you guys once again. So, with that said, that's going to wrap this episode of the Reviewing Network Live. Thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. I hope you like and subscribe to this. I hope you check out our other channels so you can see some of the other videos I've done over there, some of the episodes we do here. But thank you guys so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. Have a great Christmas, everybody. Have a great holiday. Merry Christmas, everybody. Happy Hanukkah, Happy Kwanzaa, whatever you're celebrating. I hope you have a lovely, lovely holiday, and I'll see you guys next week for what will be the last episode of this year, because we're of course moving into 2024 not too long from now. But once again, there will be another free preview episode this coming Sunday, so be on the lookout for that. And so with that said, once again, Merry Christmas. I hope you have a great holiday, and I will see you guys next time. So have a great holiday, and until then, we are out.